Ladies and gentlemen, we are back to the show that shatters the silence on men's mental health. We are unedited, unfiltered.
And as always, we are going raw. My name's Anthony.
I'm Joey.
And I'm Eric, and we're your hosts, and welcome to Raw Minds.
Raw motherfucking Minds.
Yeah,
Season
boys.
2.
Yeah, buddy.
Doing it big, doing it big, doing it big.
Every Monday, man. Every Monday.
We're here.
Every Monday, you guys can see us. And this when we record. Every Friday, we are on every platform you can think of. 13 countries across the world. And we just keep going and going. And, you know, the main reason why we do this is to just give back and help people, man. That's it.
Yeah.
Every one of us on this panel has lived a life of heartbreak, trauma, abuse, suicide, addiction. We come from all walks of life here, and all squished into this one screen here. So, you know, this is also our therapy and our counseling sessions when we get to sit here every week and talk to you guys who are listening. To, you know, we've said it numerous times. I mean, we ain't psychiatrists, we ain't licensed counselors, but we've lived that street life. We've lived the traumas. We've lived the pain most of our lives. So it really means a lot to be able to share this platform with you boys and the guests that we have on, and it's touching. So we want to thank you. I want to thank you, and it means a lot.
Well, we thank you, and we thank everybody, and we thank all our listeners as well, man. You know,
Yeah, man.
that's what it's about.
Yeah, which also makes it a little more tough going into this episode. You know, myself and Eric, you know, we started this over a year ago. You know, we were our intention behind it was to save one person's life. That was it. It wasn't driven by money. It wasn't driven by fame. It was driven by really helping
Love.
somebody in love,
Yeah.
because we genuinely care. We were there. We tried to kill ourselves. We've suffered. You know, the hands, like I said, the abuse. You name it. We've lived it, and that's why we started it. You know, and along this journey, you know, Mr. Anthony here was a guest on our show a couple times, who has now become a permanent co-host because he's just one amazing dude, and we love him, and he's just made the show so much better. And but I've also, you know, part of the show is you know, doing what you say you're going to do, you know, leveling up like we always talk about, you know, taking accountability, and in that I've also come to the conclusion of my own self-reflection lately that, you know, I'm trying to do all these positive things in life, but I'm spreading myself too thin. You know, and I've started building all these massive bridges, but I'm not finishing them. You know, and I think I had to refocus and reassess what's not so much what's important. It is important because all of this is important. That doesn't change. But what's going to benefit me today, going forward in the near future. And that being said, is a part of that is I've upon talking with my co-hosts, who are just it made it a lot easier, and understanding is that I have to take accountability and do the things that I preach, right? And knowing where I need to make changes in my life, and it's not bad, but I have to refocus. And that being said, I've made the decision to step away from the show for a while. So this will be my last episode for a while. You know, it's not forever, but until further notice, I really got to dial in and refocus. because I'm basically driving myself into the ground, and as some of us do, and I'm just spread too thin. So I had to make that decision to step down and let these boys, roll ahead for a little while. And it's not easy, man. It's definitely not. I mean, this is a huge part of my life. It's a huge part of you boys' lives. To have amazing guests that, like, especially like the one we're about to introduce in a few minutes, and the people that we've touched. Like I said, me and Eric started this trying to save one person, but I think we've saved 4 people's lives from suicide. We've had
That we
numerous
know of.
that we know of. We've had numerous emails and from females, even like huge female listeners that we weren't expecting, and it's just a true blessing to even from where we started to where we are. Like I said, we're in 13 countries, and it's an amazing feeling. But I also had to make the decision to step back for a little while. So that being
Well,
said, is I just want to thank everyone, and like Raw Minds is never going away. I know these boys won't let that happen. I'm not going to let that happen, but sometimes, like I said, part of giving advice is also taking the advice that I give, and I have to take the accountability in that, in my choices in my life, and do what I say I'm going to do, and do what I suggest that people do, and be authentic and stand behind that, right? And a part of that is to take a step back, refocus in the things that I'm doing in my life, and then go and revisit it. So
if
I want to
anything, man, we're proud of you, brother. We are.
Dude, I wouldn't have it any other way,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
I know it's not on me to take the weight of it, but like if if this was holding you back and you didn't take that fucking opportunity, man, like there's a part of me that would feel some form of guilt. Because like
Hmm.
we're all like we all preach it, man. Like we're all about people bettering themselves and being successful. We don't wish ill will on fucking anybody, especially this brotherhood that we have on this screen right now.
Yeah.
Man, like I will do anything in my power to help you succeed. And if that means we got to double down on the work on our end, man, fucking doubling down. No questions asked, man. This thing, this thing was built from the ground up with you two, and I'm eternally grateful for that. And I'm eternally grateful for the times that you specifically, like I've gone through some shit in the past, and like you've dragged me out, you've dragged me onto this fucking show on episodes that I didn't want to be a part of before I was a co-host, and you dragged me on. Like you are to me, man, you are an inspiration, and you are Raw Minds. So I love you, brother. I'm super grateful, and I'm super fucking proud of you for making the decision you're making for yourself. And I'll speak for myself and say that I've got you 100% no matter what you need anytime, man. Love
thank
you,
you,
man.
man. Appreciate it.
And that goes for me too, man. We live 15 minutes away from each other, so we'll still be seeing each other. And I love you and respect you. And this is the decision that you need to make in order for your life to grow, man. And I mean, what
Well,
kind of what kind of person would I be to try to hold someone back from growing, man? I want
Absolutely.
everybody around me to make money and grow and be successful.
yeah,
Man,
and
and I'm proud of
and,
you.
and that's the thing is like we talked about it last week about success and what each person's definition of freedom is, and that
Yeah.
really hit home with me. And I know we talk about it all the time, and I know things that they're there, but after that episode, I'm like, what is my definition? What is it that I truly want? I want to spread my hands and feel no walls. And in order to do that, as much as we're not about money, it's about, but it plays a big part on getting to that freedom to make things easier, whether we like it or not. I've never been driven by money or greed. I'm the most, you know, easygoing, help anybody kind of guy. But I also, if you want to get to these levels of freedom, it's going to take hard work, growing businesses, not just a 9 to 5 and do all this extra. So that's why I have to take a step back
And
and
sacrifices, bro.
and sacrifice, and it's probably the most mature decision I think I've ever made. Actually, being like, "Yo, man, you really gotta just refocus." And like, "Hey, finish building that bridge. Now you can go to the finish the next bridge," and so on. Not trying to build four bridges at once and then standing on big open gaps that I can't cross. And that's
Yeah.
what's happening. And I just keep hitting walls, and I'm doing it to myself. So that's the accountability I need to take. And like anybody listening has to take is you got to really dial in your life if you want to get to where you want to get to. You have to make short-term sacrifices for long-term gains, right? You have to be able to say no to going out. You have to be able to, stay in while everyone else is partying if that's what they're doing, and dial in and get up fucking 2 hours before anybody else. If it's that important, you're going to put in that effort and you're going to grind. And in that
Yeah,
is the
man.
sacrifices that you got to make in your life to get to these points of your life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's easy to just sit back like, well, one day I'll get that, and one day I'm going to buy that, but you'll never achieve it because where's the work and the sacrifices you're making to get there? There is none, and most people are like that. And that is one person thing that I am not. And if that means I got to sit here in a fucking dark room by myself day in and day out for the next 3 months, 6 months, that's what I got to do, man. And the biggest
Mm,
sacrifice was stepping away from this show. And it's not easy because this is like my therapy too.
mm,
And to sit and talk with you boys every week is something I look forward to every week. But at the same time, these sacrifices that whether it's mine or what I'm doing or what you guys listening do is
mm,
in order to get to where you got to go is you have to make
mm,
these sacrifices whether it's easy or not, and that could even mean getting rid of the relationship you're in. That could mean getting rid of away from the person you're dating because it's too toxic, and that's exactly what we're talking about tonight,
Yep.
right? It's toxic relationships and the damages that it causes you and how that holds you back in your life, right? And then the negative people we talk about all the time, the bad apple effect, all these things, right? So it's the sacrifices we make, man, in our life that it's all about you and what you want in your life because everybody everybody has their own definition of freedom and happiness or what they think that they want, but most people will never get to that and live in a state of constant depression because they just make excuses and blame the world. But oh, I want this. Oh, one day I'll never buy that and this. Like, dude, you can't live like that. And I
No.
refuse to be like that. So again, I got to look at what I'm doing. I have to take accountability because this is what I preach, and
mm,
I have to be authentic about it and do with what I say that I'm going to do. Just like I tell people and give advice, then I have to do the same. Otherwise, it means nothing and it's empty and it's fake. So that means
mm.
this is a big sacrifice I'm taking to move forward in my life, and that's what I got to do.
And we support you.
Fucking right, we do. And to our listeners, we will do our fucking best to bring the energy that Joey brings at the intro of every episode. That's gonna be the hardest part, man.
Yeah.
I can't flip that switch like you can and just be fucking raring to go.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, boys. Everyone that's tuning in, as I just mentioned, we are hitting up toxic relationships. It's a big one. And the guest that we have on tonight is sitting down in the US of A. He is a full time motivational speaker who travels the country. His and Anthony's talking about energy, man. This guy's energy is off the hook.
Yeah, dude.
We
Hell
loved
yeah.
it. We already love this guy, and he hasn't even said a word. So let's bring him on and let's welcome Mr. Wes Woodson.
Oh man,
Welcome.
what's up, my brothers, my new brothers on the internet?
Right on.
Before we even get into it, I just want to say what y'all just delved into on live, even off camera, off the live. Like, it's not bullshit. Like, this is like I can feel the brother through the freaking screen. Joey, bro, I know this is my first episode being a part of the show, but I know your energy is gonna be missed. But I respect what you're deciding to do. I think it takes a lot of self awareness. It takes a lot of courage to arrive to the point of realizing you're overextending yourself and choosing yourself despite how you think it might hurt or might change other people's opinions about you. Like, I love the fact that you're choosing you, and hearing that you have your brothers to support you. That's freaking amazing, man. But yeah, I'm glad to be here tonight. My name is Wes. I actually, yes, as Joey said, I travel all around the country sharing my story about how I dealt with anxiety and escaped toxic relationships to better improve my own relationship with myself. And I hope to get into it tonight with my new brothers I came across on TikTok.
Hell yeah, man.
Fuck yeah,
Hell
dude.
yeah. But we've been excited for you. We've been talking. We're like, we can't wait, man. And the energy that you bring, man, we love it. That's what we want here. So we're
Dude,
excited
even in
to
our
kick
like
this off.
pre-interview with you, I was fucking fired up when we got off. So
Oh, bro, me
I'm
too.
stoked, man. I'm stoked.
Me too. My fiance was in the other room and she was like, "Yo, are you speaking to like a crowd right now?" I was like, "Nah, I was speaking to only 3 guys in Canada," and we were just like just so energized, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
I
man.
love,
Yeah,
I
dude.
love it. You know, thank God for technology because if the camera was not, I'd probably be talking to myself right now against this brick wall. But I'm so
Yeah.
glad to get a chance to be with all y'all virtually.
Hell yeah,
Yeah.
brother. Hell yeah, man. So
But
yeah, go ahead, Joey.
no, you take it away, buddy.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we'd like to dive deep into kind of like what you do all over the country first here, if we don't mind.
Nah, man, of course. I mean, the present day version of me, of a public speaker and author and traveling across the country, I hit about 25 different states in the US of A. And I'm halfway there. I want to hit all 50 states, but to understand even how I got to this, I do got to go backwards because I think hindsight is always 2020. Even though now I talk about building healthy relationships with yourself, learning the power of self love and self compassion, these are things I had to learn through hardcore experience, right? So I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, being the only black kid in my class. So you could probably imagine the things I was told at a very young age of like, I don't talk black, I sound white, I dress a certain way, I don't look black enough. It was all these different things that damaged my self esteem and just ruined my sense of self, if I'm being honest. And my parents, my mom, my dad, they would always tell me this thing. They're always like, Wes, because we live in like this white neighborhood, you have to work twice as hard to be considered just as good. That was something they always told me. And I think as a man, I kind of wanted to wear that as like a badge of honor of like how much I was working. But to be honest, now that I look back on it, I was doing all of that, whether it was trying to work hard in school, whether it was trying to be the best athlete as possible. I was trying to earn the sense of being enough. And I think as a man who couldn't, or as a young boy who couldn't validate himself, I would depend on other things externally to kind of fill that void. And I think a lot of us do that, whether it's a job, whether it's relationships, whether it's even going to alcohol or drugs. And when it doesn't work, because it's never enough, right? It's never enough. Whether it's sex, drugs, alcohol, blow, what do you want to do? You're trying to numb that pain. And for me, when I got to college, man, I went on a wild kind of, I don't even want to call it like a binge, or if you want a binger or a bender of just like going from sex to alcohol to drugs to experimenting with this and that. And my junior year of college, that's when everything changed for me. That's when I found myself in a relationship. And this relationship, as a man, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. Like this is what I've always been chasing. I wanted the constant validation, the constant sense of feeling wanted, being told you're good enough, you're handsome enough, being pursued sexually. It was all those things that men stereotypically want, only to be trapped in a toxic, abusive relationship. And it took a police officer telling me that I was in an abusive relationship for me to wake up and be like, I don't deserve this. And then from that whole point of being hospitalized, and I mean, there's a whole long story, brother, but
Yeah.
I ended up taking all the things that I was learning to really try to build a better relationship with myself. And it took escaping that toxicity to come back to myself. And that's what I teach around the country.
Did you say, yeah, sorry, would you say it was like more like love bombing is what they did? More like trapping you, throwing all this shit at you first, making you feel vulnerable, that, you know what I mean, this person's safe, and then pretty much destroy you?
That's a great question, man, because I feel like when we think about toxic relationships, we got to go back and study and look at people who join cults. Like it's a cult of one. What I mean by that is no one wakes up and be like, I want to join a cult. No one's gonna wake up and be like, I want to get into a toxic relationship. No one's gonna do that. It happens where it's slow. It's slow progression to a point where you wake up maybe a year to 5 years later down the line, and you're like, yo, what have I gotten myself into? So it's a mixture of many different things. It wasn't as if the person had a sign that said I'm toxic. It
Mm-hmm.
was instead of these kind of small behaviors that would build up to, oh my gosh, I'm isolated from my friends. Oh my gosh, we're arguing almost every other day. Oh my gosh, I haven't spoken to my family in what, like 3 weeks at least. I mean, having an in-depth conversation or calling my mom, which I normally did every Sunday, and now I'm not really doing that at all. It's going to, oh wait, now I'm trying drugs because that person likes drugs, and I'm trying to do these things to earn her validation. And it's like, wait, Wes, this isn't you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my best friends, and it got to a point where you wake up one day and you realize you're on an island by yourself. And that's when I'm like, oh, but then it's almost too late because you're X amount of months of the relationship. Everyone knows you as the man who has the, you know, attractive girlfriend, quote unquote, attractive girlfriend, and you don't want to leave. So it's almost like you're stuck. And that's why I always call it the cult of one, because you have this sense of you're in this place where you never thought you would ever be. And it takes what I would call the hand of God to pull you out of it. And that's what happened to me.
I got a question. I got a question for you, Wes.
Of course, bro.
Now, let's rewind when you first met that girl that you were in that toxic relationship with.
Yeah.
Where was right when you met her? Where do you think you were mentally, and where you were in your life?
Bro, that's a great question, man. My junior year of college, I was in a very low place because I had my first relationship ever in my life, my first love, when I was 18. And that relationship had kind of hit the shitter my beginning of my sophomore year of college. So from the sophomore year to the beginning of junior year, I went through this bend of like when I lost my first love, I was trying to find a sense of feeling something. I think heartbreak is a very painful thing to go through, but and that's what I was dealing with. I was dealing with a broken heart. And I would try all these different things like hookup culture, dating apps, drinking, smoking. I was really trying to feel something. So that's where my state of mind was when I met this person. I met this person because obviously I went to a very smaller school and everyone knew everybody. It was essentially a big high school, if I'm being real. And I saw this person. She looked attractive, definitely looked pursuable. And I'm not gonna lie, I pursued her. Right? I didn't. She didn't fall into my lap. I pursued her, and I thought it was gonna be the best thing ever, and it was in the beginning, right? I think when I even though I was in therapy, my therapist would see some red flags in the beginning, but bro, I was so in it where I
Mm-hmm.
was like, yo, you don't know her like I do. Like, and that was the thing. Whenever someone would come around, but yo, Wes, you don't play basketball anymore. Like, you're always in her room. Like, you don't have a sense of individuality anymore. Like, where are you? I would get defensive, and I'm like, nah, you don't understand. Da da da. I know her. You don't. And that's another piece of advice I always give students. If they have a friend who they think is in a toxic, abusive relationship, never say like, "Oh, they're the problem," or "You're not doing. I don't know you anymore." That's not really helpful. Trying to remind that person of who they were before the relationship, and trying to be that progressive, like, "Hey, I'm always gonna be here for you." That's helpful. But in the past, in college, I felt judged, and I felt like I had to defend what I was in, and that's kind of what added to the toxicity itself.
Well, and the
Man,
reason, and the,
sorry, go ahead, Joey.
sorry, the reason I asked that question is, and a lot of people out there in all these toxic relationships is when I asked why or how where you were at the time that you met her is, you don't attract what you want, you attract who you are. right? So there was a lot that you didn't deal with yet in your past
Yeah.
that brought her into your life, because if she was the
Mhm.
way she was, doesn't mean you're the exact same where one's, you know, abusive or a cheater, but you're
Right.
still damaged in some way.
100%.
And so was she already before you even met her, and you, or when you met her, and you guys were both just as damaged in different levels of your life that neither one of you fixed or worked on before getting into that relationship. So you guys were like emotional paramedics for each other in the
Mhm.
beginning. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it was great because
Yeah.
it's healing the wounds that I've disregarded or refused to deal with, and push them down. So you
Uh,
attracted that toxicity, right? And
Like
just
a
like a lot
blanket.
of people, right, is
Yeah.
you see a lot of people that, oh, I've been in these abusive relationships, I've been this and that, but in reality, like it's your fault in a sense,
yeah.
because sure, you're not the type that cheated or the one that was the abuser, but it's your fault that you let it get to that point, because I guarantee you, in all these toxic relationships, you look at the beginning, there is a lot of red flags you were colorblind to,
Yeah.
or there was a lot of, you know, situations that you overlooked where you should have been cut it right there, knowing that you're like, but then we try to judge because of our lack of self confidence and self worth.
Yep.
Is you like, oh, but he was such a nice guy when we did this, and then you overlooked this shit, and we
Yes.
overlooked that with her, and we overlooked that with him, right?
Mhm.
Because
Yes.
our self worth and our self confidence is much lower, and
Right.
you don't want to feel like you want to lose that person and be alone.
Right.
So you drag it out, and now it becomes your fault because you allowed it.
Bro, I couldn't have said that any better
Yeah.
because I learned, and that is a hot take, right? We call that a hot take. That would be classified as a controversial opinion on the stance of or talking about toxic relationships because sometimes when you are in that sense of I don't want to call it victimization, but when you are called like a victim of domestic violence or a victim of assault, or when you escape your abuser, you do have this sense of, oh, they did this to me. But the
Mhm.
question is like, okay, what did I attract? Right? Where is that level of responsibility? And when I was in the hospital, because I was hospitalized for suicidation,
Oh.
I had thoughts
It just
of
ran
hurting
away.
myself. And it felt like for me, having all these thoughts and having all these very dangerous suicidal thoughts and getting help in the hospital, I finally learned better ways to talk about these things. And one of the things I learned was radical acceptance. So it's the understanding that it's not your necessarily your fault what happened to you. Like I didn't like want her to like hit me or assault me, but it's my responsibility of what happens next. And that was the shift I had to make in my mind.
Mhm.
And it's been wild because when you were talking, Joey, I had this thought process. I was like, you mentioned we attract these things because we don't have a sense of self worth or self confidence, and this metaphor just popped into my head. I love it. I'm gonna share with y'all. It's almost like we see ourselves as like gas stations. There's no dress code required. There's no standard for required to go to a gas station. You can go in there and shit on the walls and there won't be a problem. You can leave. You know what I mean? But you wouldn't do that at a 5-star restaurant. Like you wouldn't.
Mhm.
There's a standard, there's a dress code, there's things that are allowed and things that are not allowed. You probably won't cuss up a storm at a 5-star steakhouse. But you can cuss all you want. You can, like I said, you can do anything you want in a gas station bathroom. And sometimes our standards reflect that. We have the standards of a gas station bathroom when we need the standards of a 5-star restaurant. And that's
Oh,
what I try to teach people too. You know?
Yeah, 100. I like that. 100%.
yeah, man, I can relate a lot to that situation. And you know what's fucked up is like my last relationship. I did a lot of therapy, and it was essentially the exact same thing as you. I didn't
Mm,
deal with like physical abuse or anything, but there was. I can relate to that sense of like almost like persuading outside people that this person is a good person. But then
Mhm.
in the end, like doing therapy and stuff, like I
mhm.
remember talking with my therapist and being like, I don't even know who I am anymore because I had lost my entire identity in this person, right? And the
Wow.
way she had kind of explained it to me is like when you are with someone, you just kind of intrinsically pick up on their traits. So an easy example would be like if your fiance watched The Office when you guys got together and you never watched it, and then
Yeah.
you guys started watching it together, and now you guys say quotes from The Office, right? Like you are essentially taking on a part of this person's identity, and you're not removing a part of yourself, but you're taking on their identity. So what I had done in my last relationship, it was I had taken on a lot of her identity, and I had lost who I was. And
Mm.
it was like you said about the validation, man. And I had a fucking experience at the end of last week because like this is like almost 8 months ago, but like I had a situation last week where I had this wild well up of feelings. And this is why I was super excited about this episode tonight. This wild well up of feelings, and it was stuff that I thought I had like worked through. And I've worked through some of it, don't get me wrong. But it was like I the best way I can describe it is like it felt like I was drowning, and there's these things that I commonly reach for. I'm in recovery, so I'm sober, so drugs and alcohol aren't a thing that I reach for anymore. But there's
Mm.
like typical things for me are like try to find a different job because that'll make me feel like enough because like I want to do something different with my life. Maybe if I reach out to this girl, she's gonna say something nice about me or tell me that I'm attractive. Like typically I reach for these common things, and it was just like a moment of like nope, we're not doing that anymore. Like and I talked to my sponsor on the phone today about it, and he's like, man, like that's healing in and of itself. Like you're acknowledging these things that you do. So it was like this feeling of drowning, and it was just like my brain's going to all these places. Reach out to this girl, reach out to that girl, like talk to your work about getting a raise, get on Indeed, try to find a new job, like do all this shit to try to make me feel in this moment validated. And it's like, man, like it doesn't matter what anybody says or what I do. The only way I'm going to get that is from inside. So
Mhm.
I think it was Thursday, and like, man, I was like, there was so much pent up emotion, and I knew I had to fucking cry. And I just like, I went for a drive and I put on this music, and I was literally like, because my therapist is big on self compassion too. And I was good at it for a
Yeah.
while, and then I kind of fell off of it. So I was like, I was in my car and I was literally talking out loud to myself. I was like, man, like it's okay. Like there's nobody here. Like you're safe. You're safe here with you. You don't need anybody else. Like just let it go. And man, the
Mm.
fucking walls that I could feel inside that I was trying to break through. Like I was yelling at myself. I'm like, just stop. Like let it go. Like you're good, man. Like you're safe. And finally I just fucking let it go. And I'm just like driving down the road, back fucking country roads, bawling
Wow.
my eyes out in the dark, just listening to the saddest music. But it was just like when I was done, I just said to myself, I'm like, see, like nothing bad happened. This is what you needed. But I like in that moment I acknowledged like how fucking heavy duty it is. Like the walls that we put up to protect ourselves, but like what we don't realize that we're doing is we're making it harder on ourselves to learn how to love ourselves
Mhm.
because like we're so afraid of the outside world, but we want the answers from the outside world. But it's like you got to get inside, man. Like
Yeah,
no
you got
matter
to.
what it takes, man. It was just
Yeah, your shoulders just dropped, after that all
oh,
happened. You just felt
dude, like it was the like, but it took like a lot of fucking work, man. Like it took a lot of like bargaining with myself, like basically patting myself on the back, telling myself it's gonna be okay, being like, "Come on, man, just fucking let it go, like let it down, like you know
Mhm.
this is what you need, just let it happen." And finally, just like thinking about stuff, and it's just like I could feel my body, I could feel my shoulders drop, I could feel the walls come down, and it's like, okay, this is what you want, this is what you're gonna get, and I just fucking let it out,
Wow.
and it was just like, but man, like, yeah, like self love is fucking hard. Self compassion is fucking hard. Like, it's not an easy thing. It's
Yeah,
not an
buddy.
easy thing at
Well,
all.
I wanna touch on something you said there. It kinda interested me. So, when, like, you said how we absorb pretty much, like, that person watching The Office, and you guys watch it, blah, blah, blah.
Yep,
I wonder if you've had all these, like, toxic relationships through your life that you've absorbed a little bit from each of one of these, and they actually become part of you, and then you
absolutely.
bring
I would
that to
agree.
your next relationship.
That's interesting. You want to take
Yeah.
that, Anthony?
No, no, go for it, man.
Because Eric, what you're describing, man, like a lot of the work that I'm doing, because to your point, Anthony, my therapist is huge on self compassion and self love. But a lot of that, the lens that she looks at it through, and which I love, is the inner child,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh
So
yeah.
my full name is Wesley. I go by Wes because it's just easier and it sounds better. But
Yeah.
Wes is my nickname. But like, there's Wes as like who I am today, how I present myself in public, and my fiance kind of has helped me understand this model too that I'm gonna get into in a second. But there's Wes and there's Wesley, right? Wesley is like that younger version of me, and with him, he grew up seeing toxic relationships everywhere, right? I never actually saw a healthy relationship modeled for me, so I
Mhm.
grew up thinking that that was normal. I
Yeah.
grew up thinking police coming to your door, to your house to break up fights between mom and dad was normal. I grew up thinking that slammed doors, broken glasses, yelling at each other was normal. So when I got into a relationship that was mirroring of what my parents were like, I didn't leave because I'm like, this is what it's supposed to be like. That's
Yeah.
why it was when the officer told me that I was in a toxic relationship, it's like I didn't know that. It was hard for me to actually put two and two together of like, I don't deserve this. And it was a part of my lack of self worth and self compassion and having higher standards for myself. But it's what I was used to. So to your point, Eric, like I agree with you 100% that growing up, there was definitely a part of me that when I actually got into a healthy relationship now, I'm going on almost 4 months being engaged, right? And I never thought I would ever get here because I didn't think my parents got divorced when I was 12. Thank goodness. But it was a very toxic relationship. But now being in a healthy relationship, I would bring the toxicity I was used to into
Mhm.
here because
Yeah.
my nervous system was too used to disruption and chaos that
Yeah.
when I experienced normal healthiness, I'm like, am I bored? Am I settling? Let me
I was
pick a
gonna
fight.
ask you if you
Mhm.
found it
Yeah.
boring. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It was wild. And I told my therapist this and she drew out a map for me. She was like, describe your relationship with Katie. That's my fiance. And I was like, well, we argue. Do you argue every day? No. Once a week? Probably not. Maybe twice a month. Maybe.
Mhm.
Now it's like once a month, to be honest. I'm grateful.
Yeah.
But like before, we were arguing every single day. The graph was like this. And I
Yeah.
was used to that. I was used to that. And she said, Wes, you're in a healthy relationship, but you're so used to being in unhealthy relationships that you won't give yourself permission to understand something new and welcome
Yeah.
something new.
Mm.
So that was the whole cycle that I had to even step out and be like, oh shit,
Yeah.
I'm really doing this to myself.
See, I
well, and
went
that
through that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joy.
no, I was just gonna say to add to that is like with these people, with everyone that goes through toxic relationship after toxic relationship is when you're born in a burning house, you think the whole world's on fire,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So and
Mm-hmm.
then I've looked at some of my friends and even girls I've dated way in the past that's gone from one toxic to the next, and the guy that beat her up, and then the guy that cheats, and this, and but yet their life is so together outside of those relationships. Great job, great career, owns a house, this, and then yet they're dating these fucking losers over
Yeah.
and over, and it never really registered, and I never understood it. And even guys going back to toxic women, like it's both ways,
Yeah.
but it's I never really understood it, but I mentioned this before on one of the episodes. I read a book not too 2 years ago, I think, and in the book it states how especially the women that go back to these relationships is because they're comfortable. That's all they know.
Mhm.
Now
Yeah.
everyone on the planet knows cheating's wrong. Abuse is definitely you're a piece of shit if you smack women or anybody around. Everyone knows that, and nobody wants them. But the
Mm-hmm.
people that go back to this is because they're comfortable. That's where
Yeah.
that's what they know,
It's predictable for
and
them.
it's
Yeah.
predictable for them. And as much
Yeah.
as every single girl will be like, I just want a nice guy and this, and then when they get it, they get really uncomfortable, and then they self sabotage it. And then,
Mhm.
like, I was even one of those guys once where I'm just like, man, I've been super polite. I've been faithful. I've taken her out. I'm like, I don't understand. What did I do? But in
Mm.
reality, once you understand it, is
Yeah.
you actually didn't do anything. They
Mhm.
self sabotage it in their own mind because now it's uncomfortable for them. Now they're
Yeah.
I
freaked out. Like, I'm not used to this shit. right? And that's why they
Yeah.
back off. And then, but at the same time, then people like us, we get hurt because we're like, I don't understand what. And even like some of the girls, like I've seen super sweetest girls are destroyed by a guy because he self sabotaged it because he's so used to the toxicity of the females and the crazy ones that he used to date, and now he's got a good girl, and then she's heartbroken because he's self sabotaged, and vice versa. Because
Yeah.
you just live in this comfortability, whether you know it's right or not. But that's just what
Yes.
you're used to. And like I said, you're born in that burning house, so you just think everything else is on fire, and that's just normal to you. And
Yeah.
that's why it's so hard to get these people to get out of these toxic relationships because that's all they're used to. But again, it goes back to what I said is the reason you keep also getting into them is because you have no self-esteem. You have no self-confidence. You have no self-worth. And you
Right.
keep attracting the same ones over. Because most people will monkey branch and go to the next one and the next one, but
Right.
and blaming the one before like it was his fault and
Yeah.
not taking accountability, and now you're bleeding on the next person that didn't cut you, and so on, and you're just dragging in, and that's why your relationships keep failing, and that's why you keep attracting the same guys that smack you around or cheat or whatever, vice versa, and
Yep.
it's a revolving door. And even when you're like, oh well, this one's different, and then yeah, well, I guarantee you in 6 months that relationship is over. Give it six
Oh
months to
yeah.
a year, 100%, it's over because you
Oh
never
yeah.
did any work and found that self compassion, that self love. And
Oh
until
yeah.
you do, and like in your case, Wes, like you said, is you went through these relationships, you were in the hospital, the suicide, the drugs, and now you got to a point where you started seeing the therapy, you started doing the work on yourself. And the reason why you're in an engagement now with a good girl is because you rebuilt your self worth and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
your self esteem, and that's what you attracted. That's
Yeah.
the only reason. Because if you didn't do that work and you just kept going the path, there's no way you would be engaged right now. You would be in another toxic relationship and
Yep.
another failed relationship,
100%.
Yes.
hands down.
Yes. Hands down. And I thank God for my partner. Katie's the best because she was so patient with me, even when. So even to your point, Joey, of doing the work, right? The thing about self love that I always have to say, it's not an achievement. It's a continual, constant process and practice, right? Like Anthony, to your point of like driving on that long drive, and you put on that song, you have to constantly and consciously and intentionally do the work to break down those walls because
Absolutely, man.
it's almost like you have
Mm-hmm.
spent the first half of your life. For me, I'm 26 years old, so up until 2 years ago. So for the last 24 years of my life, I have been so used to being not safe,
Mhm.
just unsafe in my own body, like
Yeah.
unsafe in my own surroundings. I don't like loud noises. I don't like slam doors. They're very triggering for me. So I have learned all of these triggers that I have, but I'm 26 now. But I spent so long like
Mm-hmm.
being so afraid of these things that when I got into a healthy relationship, I was still bringing that toxicity
Yeah.
to the relationship despite doing some work. And Katie was so patient with me. So that's another thing I want to give to the viewers or listeners is the fact that when you can find that person who is patient with you, because you will still have moments where I don't want to call it relapse, but you still have moments where you kind of want to go back. You want to
I
go
would call
back
it
to what you know.
relapse, man.
Yeah.
Like
Or
there's a
take a
term.
knee.
Yeah, there's a term in recovery. It's called an emotional relapse. Like before you actually relapse, it's an emotional relapse. You revert to old behaviors and old thinking to send you
Yes.
back to where you were. So yeah, I would call that an emotional relapse.
An emotional relapse. And to be fair, and again, I'll be completely honest with everyone on this podcast, I self sabotaged my relationship last year because we've been together for 4 years now. Going on 4 years this past month. And I self sabotaged
Congratulations.
last year. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. And what happened was when I was younger, I'm 26 years old, like I said. When I was younger, there was a lot of sexual abuse that happened when I was a kid, and that had really made me question my identity as a man, and never mind as a heterosexual man. So I'm not sure you ever heard of this term called trauma reenacting.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes you can have a sense where, to your point, Joey, about you might be in this pattern where you're constantly being with partners who are slapping you around because that's what you're used to. And
Mhm.
maybe that happened to you when you were a kid. So for me, whenever I would have these challenges with my own kind of feeling inferior or not wanted enough, I would do these things being emotionally unfaithful in my relationships. And I felt like with Katie, it was too perfect. It felt like that I wanted to smudge off. I couldn't, I didn't feel like I deserved it.
Yeah.
So I,
Mhm.
I had emotional relapse and I was emotionally unfaithful. And I remember for me, I came clean. I came clean. I told her everything, and we went to couples therapy. And for the last year, we have been doing so much work both on the relationship. Because another thing people don't talk about either is when you escape a toxic relationship and you find yourself in a healthy relationship, it takes work. It takes
Mhm.
work, and we are doing the hard work now. I'm showing this girl all of my scars and being vulnerable, which is not. I'm not used to that, and it's been quite literally the wildest thing I have ever experienced in my life.
And the
Because my
trust
young
too, right?
bro,
That
the
that
trust,
grows trust, like, massive, you showing that.
I was gonna say, like,
100.
that's how you build a fucking connection. Like, people think that
Yeah.
this, like, good relationships are just like you meet the person you know, and then everything's fucking sunshine and unicorn piss. No, like, the best way to build that connection is exactly how you're doing it. Like, lay it
Yeah.
all out on the table, but make sure that you know it's a safe place to do so. Because I've been
Yes.
in situations where I'm pretty like, fuck, man, look at what we're doing right now. Like, I'm pretty open about my past, and I'm pretty fucking vulnerable. I don't have an issue with that, probably to a fault sometimes. And there's been times where I've shared certain things with people in a relationship, and then those things are weaponized against me from my past. But I shared it in confidence in a
Yeah.
safe place, but then it was used in a not safe way. And it's like, oh, well, I'm not gonna fucking tell anybody that anymore. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like that's huge, man. Like I commend you both
Yeah.
for being able to do that. That's
Well,
Yeah.
fucking
that's a hard
amazing.
situation too, Anthony, like, you open up, you be vulnerable, you tell these things just in private to the person that you love, that you trust, and
Mhm.
then they go around and use that against you,
Yeah, weaponize
and
it.
that yeah, exactly, and it happens all the time, and it really messes men and women, whoever deal with it, because
Oh,
Yeah.
then you go on to your next relationship and you got a beautiful person that actually cares about you, and now you're holding back because you got these big walls that you don't want to that you want to keep up because you're scared of getting hurt. But
Yeah.
yeah.
you got a good woman, that person's going to help you break down those walls.
Yeah, if she gonna ride for you, she gonna ride for
Yeah.
you. You know, what I mean? The framework that I teach students too is identifying a safe person. Right, I actually made
Mhm.
the word safe an acronym. So S, are they supportive? Right, do they use supportive language? Do you have a history of them being supportive? Do you have other pieces of evidence where in situations that they have shown up for you and really have never made you question their sense of loyalty to you? And then A, are they accessible? Right? Do you have access to them? Are they within arm's reach? A phone call, a 15-minute car drive, like you and like Eric and Joey? Are they able to like be accessible? F, do they use like free of judgmental like language? Like I remember for me when I tried to be vulnerable with my past in the toxic relationship, she would be like, "I hate that you go to therapy." And I was like, "Why?" And I was like, "Because every time you come back from therapy, you feel like a new person." And I'm like, ain't that the freaking point? Like you're supposed to make these
Mhm.
these connections and grow as a person, but that person wasn't being a judgment-free space. And then E, are they encouraging? Right? Are they
Mhm.
encouraging? Are they empowering? Do they try to lift you up and encourage you towards your potential instead of trying to degrade you and use things against you and weaponize what you say in the privacy of your conversations and they try to use it against you as ammo and argument? That's not a safe person. So really trying to help people identify who is even a safe person to talk to. Because sometimes it's not your mom and dad, sometimes it's not your
Mhm.
partner, and sometimes you want to get religious and spiritual. It's not your pastor or priest. So
Yeah.
who can be a safe person? Sometimes there are sheep or there's wolves dressed in sheep clothing. I say, gotta be careful.
100%.
You know what's
A
funny about
lot.
the therapy thing you said about how they would like weaponize that against you? Mine was the
Yeah.
complete opposite. If I wasn't, I was being constantly asked, when's your next therapy session? Like, why didn't you go to therapy today? So
Ooh,
my sanity was basically put in question if I wasn't in therapy.
Mhm.
Like my sanity in the relationship was contingent on me being in therapy. It was like wild, like deep rooted gaslighting shit. I was like, I learned it in therapy, and my therapist is like, you got to get the fuck out. And I was just like, but they're
Yeah.
such a nice person. They're like, no, they're not. I was like, holy fuck, man.
Yeah.
They're not, man.
Yeah.
And thank goodness for your therapist, man, to give you that sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I find too at like a lot of people when people hold things over people's heads, you know, you go off and you do something. That's another thing that like for me, that's affected my life big time. You know, I've
Mm,
done a lot of things for people and they've held it over my head. And now I'm at the point where I feel uncomfortable receiving gifts. And you
mm,
know, like I still find giving things away, but I mean, when I'm receiving stuff, it's just I don't like receiving it anymore because I've had so much of stuff being held over my head that is
mm,
that it affects me because it's always in my, oh, are they gonna want that back? Are they gonna take this back? Or you know, it's always been in my mind until I met my fiance that passed away. You know, like I've had toxic relationships my whole life, and a good portion of it was my own self because I had hard times growing up. I grew up with my mom. I hung out with gangsters. You know, I didn't see how to treat women or all this stuff. It's just the toxic. I just had very toxic masculinity. I can't even say it. Like growing up, yeah.
yeah.
And then you know, I grew up going through these relationships, but like I said, like took a bit of that through me. And then when I met um my fiance that passed away, she Jules, she changed that all about me. And that's what we were talking about after. Like, you know, you met this person that helped make you vulnerable and go through that. And that's what she did for me because I was in a whole flight or fight mode. My whole life was fight or flight since I was a kid. That's all. And my body was just exhausted, you know? You're just so tired all the time because you're always running or fighting, you know? And
Yeah.
she brought me to the safe space where I didn't have to have that part of me drive my body. You know, I could actually
Yeah.
take over and you know, feel the feelings and know that I was in a safe space. So I can really relate to you for what you went through.
No, I was gonna say, Eric. First off, thank you for sharing that. I always appreciate when people are vulnerable with me. So
Mhm.
all of you, thank you for sharing different parts of your story.
Fucking raw minds, baby.
And
That's
I
what we
love it.
are,
There it
buddy.
is. There it is. I love it.
We're
I was
different,
gonna say
man.
when you were sharing a bit of your story, Eric, like again, my mind, how it works is I think visually. So when like you were talking about, you've always been in like fight or flight mode, and when you met Jules, you kind of slowed down and all your walls came down. It kind of
Yeah.
feels when you can meet that person where your inner child feels safe coming out.
Yeah.
That that's a different person. When you find that, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the
it
thing with
makes you.
her too is like I moved in with her. I
Yeah.
lived in lots of houses. I lived with girlfriends before. I lived by myself, but it wasn't a
Mm,
home. You know, it never felt like a home. And then when
mm,
I moved in with her, you know,
mm,
it just it felt right. It felt like a home. I felt like I belonged in a
mm,
sense, you
mm.
know? Like and yeah, like I belong. This is where I was supposed to be. This is a house. This is love. Like the walls were filled with love.
Yeah. Mm. And I feel
It's
like
nice.
that's so beautiful because that's what I try to help people do for themselves.
Mhm.
Is how can we help people feel at home internally,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of those years of you kind of saying like you were constantly in fight or flight or constantly on the run, it's almost like people who have anxiety, myself, we tend to be constant on the move, go 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 go, because the faster we are, no one can catch us, and if no one
Yeah.
can catch us, we're safe, right? But that's not sustainable because you're going to get exhausted. Like you're
Yeah.
going to feel exhausted. So if you
Yeah.
can have that place where you can just kind of come and rest your shoulders, like
Yeah.
that is that's worth everything.
But I was puking every morning. I'd wake up to go to work. Before I'd wake up, first thing in the morning, I'd run to the bathroom and I was puking blood out just
Oh
because
my
of stress and anxiety. It was like blood clots and everything. It was crazy. I went, got a
God.
gastro, didn't have an ulcer. It was just because I'm puking so much. It's just peeling layers off of my
Yourself.
esophagus. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was insane. But moving in with her, eventually that slowly stopped, and now to this day, I haven't puked in the morning blood in a long, long time.
Oh man,
Yeah, so
man.
it's crazy.
I feel like there's another part to the anxiety aspect of it too. And this may just be me, and if it's not you, then like I get it. But do you find with the anxiety too, Wes, like the moving very fast? I can relate to that. But do you
Yeah,
also feel like when it comes to the self-sabotage or the like you can't catch me, like you put yourself in positions almost as a sense of control, like even though
Yeah.
because like in my last relationship, I had a very hard time perceiving myself as a victim because
yeah,
like I've learned a lot of stuff in recovery and like I've done a lot of inner work and it's like no accountability 100%, like this is me. So when I was
yeah,
talking with my therapist and she's like no, like this is what this person did, it's like yeah no, but like I put myself there. She's like I don't care if you put yourself there, like there's still an aspect of you were in a position where like things were done to you that shouldn't have been done to you.
yeah,
But like I feel like there's a part where it's like within the anxiety and like running from a bunch of things, like it's also a sense of control. It's
yeah,
Mhm.
like
100% it
if
is.
if anybody's gonna fucking burn this house down, it's gonna be me because it's my house.
Yep.
Like I was
yeah,
I was that way. It's like a sense of control, and that's what I did with drugs and alcohol. It's like if anybody's gonna burn my life to the ground, it's gonna be fucking me. I
yeah.
feel like
100%. I
there's a
think that's
sense
the
of
defense.
control there too.
I agree. I think it's a defense mechanism,
Hmm.
right? It's
Mhm.
almost the same
Definitely.
logic of you can't fire me if I quit. You know what I
Yeah,
Yep.
mean?
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And you're putting on this armor that protects you from ever getting a sense of piercing in the chest.
Hmm.
Because
Mhm.
if you want to be on this bold image, I think a lot of men do this, right? It's that where that toxic masculinity comes in, that of us trying to be in this kind of macho mood all the time. Like we can't be hurt. That didn't happen to me. Or
The
like
lat
man
pat
up.
or syndrome. It's called lat syndrome where they hold their arm like this.
I know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
like
yeah, it's lat syndrome.
that's how I visually see it in my head. But
Yeah.
the reality is, when you can kind of take that armor off and be okay with showing your scars, like be okay with that. Because I relate to you, Anthony, where when I had to, and I'm going through this now actively, like I have therapy tomorrow, we're doing EMDR, right? So we're really doing reprocessing of my past because there's a lot of things in my past that I just want to compartmentalize and not go back
We
to.
just had a
And
guest on who talked about EMDR too, Laverne,
Mhm.
really,
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
look at that. Look at
yeah.
that. So I'm in the early stage of it. We haven't gone in depth, but I'm in the pre-stage of it where we're trying to basically build like a baseline. Um, and for me, with this baseline that we're building, it's helping me understand that, to your point, Anthony, there is a lot of things that I just kept in a room and I had the key and I locked it and I made sure no one even knew the room existed, you
Mhm.
know? And
Mhm.
now with EMDR, it's not only opening that door, but it's maybe even sharing the key with Katie, my fiance, and
Yeah.
sharing the key with my therapist, or and getting to a point where there is no more door. There
Yeah.
is no more wall. It just
Yeah.
exists. Because that's when we can get to this sense of mindfulness and objectively observing our experience instead of trying to internalize. It's the whole thing. But
Yeah.
man, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. That's the path I'm on. And I feel like that's the path that each and every one of us are on.
Yeah, man.
It's gonna be tough, definitely opening up those doors and going through that. But I mean, it needs to happen. I mean, Laverne, buddy, the guy killed it, man. He's doing amazing. He's I think listening right now. And it's I'm excited actually for you. If anything, man, I'm proud of you going through this
Thank
experience,
you.
and I'm excited
Thank you.
for you, man. So
Thank you, man. I'm elated myself. I can't wait because like it's only going to change how my kids deal with their own challenges, right? When they
yeah,
can see me loving their mom, because I'm a firm believer of that you can't fully love someone else when you have no sense of love for yourself.
yeah,
Like you
definitely.
pour from that glass. Mhm. Mhm. Done. Yep. 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 Exactly.
Mm.
Mhm.
Oh, 100. Yeah. Yes.
100%. I just actually had a conversation with Ed about this today because I called him, and he's gonna be a guest coming up here on a further show. And he was just talking about that, and he was just going through that actually right now. He's gonna go talk to his doctor about, trying to navigate through all this right now.
Wow.
So, yeah, so it's pretty powerful stuff, man.
The
Yeah,
best
man. And
the best experience I have to relate to that statement, Joey, is like look at. So my daughter's 9. I've been sober for 3 years. So before I got sober, my daughter was 6. She's gonna remember me in active addiction. I wasn't a very nice person. I was a very angry person, and I wasn't home very much. Right. And I
mm,
had this conversation with their mother, and we had disagreements because we have different perspectives, right? And I respect her perspective. I don't necessarily agree with it. But the thing that gives me like the most fucking peace, man, is I do meetings. I'm a part of a 12-step program. Part of that 12-step program is going to meetings. I have a meeting that I go to every Friday night, and my fucking kids love coming with me. There's a
wow.
lot of stuff that's said in that meeting pertaining to drugs and alcohol, but they're not actively a part of the meeting. Like they have their iPads, they're fucking around in the back. They're just there. The thing that
Yeah.
gives me peace is I'm not going to control my kids and tell my kids what to do and what not to do. Because I'll tell you right now from my own experience, my parents telling me that I couldn't do things made me want to do them more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a level of understanding of addiction and alcoholism now just based off of my experience with recovery. I'm not going to force my kids or try to control my kids in any aspect, but the difference that my kids have that I didn't have is
Mhm.
they know exactly where to fucking go if there's a problem. I
Mhm.
remember walking into these rooms alone by myself, not knowing anybody, and being fucking terrified to be in these rooms because I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been into meetings. I was a fucking raging cokehead, and I didn't feel
Mhm.
safe going into these rooms. And you go in, and everyone's so happy, and I'm like, these people are fucking delusional. Like, there's no way
Mhm.
they're this happy. But now my kids get to experience these types of meetings, so that
Mhm.
if they ever run into these types of situations in their own life, they know where to go because they've already been there and they know it's a safe place and they know these people are for fucking real. It's not some facade. They've grown up around it. She Her disagreement is they're young, and I just said to her, like, for me, it's like I would have loved to be a part of this as a child because I know people in the program whose parents are in the program and they've been there for 35 plus years, and now their children are in the program, but they grew up in there, and they'll tell you, like, I remember coming to meetings with my mom or my dad, and I remember sitting in and not understanding what people were talking about, but when I got to a point, I knew exactly where I needed to go when I needed to go there. So
Wow.
it's like I I broke that generational. I don't want to call it trauma because it was my own. Like I'm the only one in my family who's kind of been down this path. But like I broke that right from the get-go. Like it didn't have to suffer through generations before somebody else to fix it. Like
Good for you,
I
buddy.
took I took charge of that. And now my kids know that that's a safe place that they can go. No matter what, they know those people in there are
Fuck
safe.
yeah.
They've met a bunch of
Right.
my fucking friends in there. So that's how I broke generational trauma that I actually created in my kid's life.
And I
And
first off, that's fucking remarkable, man. That's freaking amazing.
Yeah, man.
That's
thank you.
freaking amazing, man. You should feel very proud of yourself for that because having that level of accountability to be like it stops with me,
Mhm.
right? And you're going to go the other way. And not only that, but to model vulnerability and reaching out for help, not only as a parent for your kids, but as a father. Like
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
is so powerful. Because I think, vulnerability stereotypically is seen as like a feminine trait, right? Being like gossiping with your girlfriends or like talking about what happened at on this show, whatever. We don't really have this level of dialogue, which is why I love your show so much because you are three men who look stereotypically like you don't want to talk about any of this stuff,
Yeah.
but here you are doing the exact opposite, which is amazing. But for you, Anthony, I will say, like, don't. I hear what you're saying about you probably were the only one in your family who went down this path. I think there's different forms of addiction, or there's different forms
Oh yeah.
of numbing that maybe that are different, but I wouldn't say it just was only you. You know what I mean?
No, I agree 100%. And like some of the stuff that I choose not to talk about on here because there's like certain traditions that we have to follow. But like
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. Like addiction doesn't have anything to do with drugs or alcohol. The way I describe it
Yeah.
to people is I had an issue and the issue was me, and I searched out medicine. You know,
Yeah.
some people can use their phone, some people can use Netflix, video
Yep.
games,
Yep.
sex, like all these things. And the best medicine that I found that fixed my problem, which was me, was cocaine. That's what I found. So addiction doesn't necessarily have to do with drugs or alcohol. It can be a bunch of anything. And I can still do that myself, man. Like I'm thinking
Right.
about taking a hiatus from social media, not because anything bad's happening, but it's very easy for me to fall into a doom scroll. And it's like I have things that I want to accomplish in my life, sort of like Joey, but
Of
mine's
course.
not to the scale that Joey's is, and I fucking respect the hell out of him for doing it. But it's like I can start with little changes, and for me right now, I think it's social media. It's like it's too easy for me to fall and get comfortable doing nothing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Mhm.
social media is going to be one thing that I remove for a while. I'm going to run like our Raw Mind social media page, but I'm going to remove my social media to just kind of have like
Wow.
a dedicated positive influence. But yeah, man, like there's so like addiction doesn't people think when they get into recovery it's like drugs and alcohol. Like no, man. Addiction
No.
is a mental disease that you deal with, and there's so many fucking forms of it that people don't even understand.
Don't. No, they don't. And I
Mhm.
think when it comes down to fundamentally what it means is when we were babies, right? When we were crying, we would either be like we reach for our pacifier,
Hmm.
or our parent would come and hug us, or our guardian would come and hold us. And I think sometimes when I think about it, we're always trying to chase that feeling again,
Hmm.
being nurtured,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
tend to numb instead, so it's like we don't really know how to nurture ourselves, so let's reach for the bottle, the drug, the
Whatever,
sex,
man. Yeah.
whatever, the
Whatever. Yeah.
scroll. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's where a lot of the people who I talk to, like younger kids from like middle school to college, that's form of addiction they deal with very early on, is like doom scrolling.
Yeah.
Especially now in the states where we just had our election last week. So like a bunch of your feeds are either side of the aisle. I'm not sure what
Hmm.
the
Mhm.
political system is like
We're
in
getting
Canada.
them in Canada too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you see it. It's rippling up there,
Yeah.
but down here, man, it's like, and it gets to a point where you just have to step away, because
Yeah.
if you don't, you find yourself up for hours. Like, and I've been guilty of this myself, of
Yeah.
just scrolling because I can't sleep. Now the real reason is, if we're as human beings we're hardwired to avoid pain, what am I trying to avoid? What am I trying to numb?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Why can't I fall asleep? To Joey's point, I had this kindergarten teacher. Her name was Miss Simon. Miss Simon, she always told people, don't point at each other, because when you point, you have three fingers pointing back at you.
Hmm.
And I love that because it shows accountability, where a lot of people in the world do a lot of pointing. Like, it's their fault. If he gets in the office or she gets in the office, they're gonna ruin my life. Da da da. But like, where's the level of thumbs back to yourself? Where's that
Mhm.
level of accountability? So now when I find myself numbing, it's like, instead of trying to be on this hamster wheel subconsciously, or just being blind to what's happening, how can I become like aware and then point the thumb back at myself, take accountability? Because
Hmm.
now for my sleep stuff, bro, I don't. I mean, excluding today because we're on this call right now, but my like shutdown period starts at like 7:30 my time, where I have no phone. I turn off the phone. I maybe treat myself to like one or two shows on my Netflix account, and then I go home, go upstairs, wash my face, take a melatonin, and I try to close my eyes.
Nice.
And that is me taking accountability for, instead of trying
Mhm.
to numb, constantly thinking about business ideas or solving this, which I have done plenty of times in the past. I'm trying to kind of get off that wheel of chasing the I am
That's what I
enough.
that's what I'm guilty of, man. I'll be up in the middle of the night, just podcast stuff, how we can make it better. I'm always chasing. One night, I think it was up to like 3 o'clock in the morning, just,
Yep.
like got these ideas, just flooding our podcast chat there, man. It's like, but it's true. It's
Yeah, and I've been so the reason why I love this conversation so much too is as a mental health advocate, right? Like, let's not get it twisted, and let's be honest. Like, all of us have been in our own low points, right? And we're constantly
definitely.
working on ourselves. So of course we want to pay it forward. But I do believe what we don't talk about enough is that could also be an addiction in and of itself. Is trying to help other people. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, you want to help so many people. You want to have more ideas for more episodes so you can help more people, hopefully. But then how are you helping yourself? Right?
Yeah,
How are you
exactly.
going to show up for yourself? So I really do commend Joey for his decision to really take time for him. And Anthony, your decision to turn off your social media. And then
Mhm.
Eric, like you're working on being here and being present in terms of how are we can we show up for ourselves to show up for other people. Fill our glass first, you know.
Well, this shit
Absolutely.
fills my glass, man. I don't give a shit what
Yep.
anybody says.
Oh,
Helping people or not, bro. I love this.
100%,
This
love
man.
is
that.
it, man.
I
I
found
love
what I
it.
was born to do, bro, and this is it. This is my calling.
And that's freaking amazing. And I hope it never stops. Mm, I love that. Right. 100%.
Toxic relationships and the toxic friends and all these are
Mm,
decisions that you have to make for you, not for anybody else. And it's okay to be a little selfish, and it's not in a bad way. But and if you don't look out for you, and you first, how can you be the best father? How can you be the best boyfriend and husband? How can you be the best co-host, uh, co-worker, any of that shit? And if every day that you're still fighting yourself over knowing that you're supposed to be doing these things, but you're not because I'm so busy giving to everybody else all the time and
mhm.
I'm not filling up my own cup, then it's it just becomes very taxing on your mental health and your day to day. And again, this is a situation in myself that I had to make to step away from the show for a while and be able to refocus to come out better. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And
And you have our
doing this,
support, bro.
like I said, doing this is just I can't ask for better, and it's not about the money. It's about just what we've done to this point. Is I am beyond grateful, and having you tonight and every person on the show and Anthony coming into our lives. From a guest to a
Yeah.
co-host.
That's wild.
You know what I mean?
You're telling me,
Mhm.
buddy. Fuck.
That's wild.
This wasn't in my 2024 calendar, that's for sure.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's how you know you're doing something special when you can attract different people, like
Yeah.
different people that come on your show. Like the fact that Anthony was a guest and now he's co-hosting, that's freaking insane. But I
Yeah,
love that.
man.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
like he was a
Yeah.
guest, and then fast forward 6 months, he was having a hard time, and I phoned him, and I just said, "Get your ass on the show." He's like, "Oh, I don't really, just dealing with some shit."
I'm laying on my bed feeling sad. He's like, I don't fucking care. You're coming on. It's like,
Come on,
okay.
Yeah,
bro.
and then he felt a little bit better after that, and then me and Eric talked, and we're like, we need to, and even though like me and Eric started it, whatever it is that we do in our life, especially in like the business world, is you have to adapt. You have to make changes as you go. You
Yeah.
have
Keep
to,
Yes.
rolling.
right? You can if you keep doing the same thing over. Yeah, it's successful in the beginning, and then everything will die out every time if you do not learn to adapt, grow, add, take away, revamp, etc. right? And me and Eric were doing the same thing, and then we just came across. We got to a point where like, you know what? Let's add something, and then we just called him randomly one day, and he's just like, "What?"
It
And we're
literally
like,
was fucking random. I feel like
It was
I
it
feel
was
like I was
funny,
eating
though.
chicken wings when you guys called me. I was out with a buddy having chicken wings when you guys called me.
You were too. You were. I remember.
I'm pretty
No, but
sure
it
that's
was
what I was
funny
doing.
because
Yeah,
love
me and Joey are talking. We're like we should bring another person in, and we just all of a sudden, all of us, Anthony, like we just both thought you came right to our head, man. You've touched us, and we're glad that we made that friendship, and now we're brothers, and you're here with us, man.
buddy,
It's
take it easy. I haven't even met you in person yet. I haven't touched you once. Come on.
Look at that.
well, see, and
yeah,
that's the funnier part is that Anthony's been with us for a while, and as a guest on the show for over a year, and we've never
Yep.
actually met him, and he's brought mine.
Never
That
in
is-
person.
That is bonkers.
I'm on the
that-
other
yeah,
side of the country. They're on the west coast. I'm over on the east.
That's
Yeah.
right.
This is as far we've gotten with Anthony. We don't even know who he is, like that.
Holy.
Joke's on
But
you guys.
we
I'm
all-
5'3".
but all three of us talk like almost every day,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Like
all the time.
we're close,
I love
We're
that.
close.
I love that.
You know.
I love that. I love
You're
that.
a part of this too now, Wes, just so you know.
Yeah, man.
So,
Yeah,
Hey,
you're
man.
part of Raw Minds family, brother.
Oh, I love it here. I love it here. I would love to, because like for me being on the show, even how this all happened is just wild. But to hear and learn more about each and one of you, like it filled my cup just hearing these stories. So
Even though I'm stepping away for a little while, doesn't mean we can fly me down and I'll go talk at a school with you for a weekend.
hey, come on down, bro. Come on, I'm building. That's the thing. So I'm building out a tour. I just finished my second tour, the 988 tour. So in the States, 988 is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline.
Yes.
yep, it's same up
And-
here.
Yep. Same
Oh,
here.
same up there.
Yep.
Okay. So I decided to call that number my tour because that number, before it was 988, it was 1-800-273-8255. And that number saved my life. So I called that hotline 4 years ago, 5 years in this upcoming February. And I met a lady named Janice. And just like I guess Eric and Joey, you guys have never met Anthony before. I never met Janice in person. And we were just on the phone for like an hour, just almost like just talking. And she was just listening to me. And she wasn't trying to give me a bunch of, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. She was just listening,
Yeah.
And it saved my life because the next day I went to my therapist. I told her I was feeling suicidal, and that's when I was hospitalized. So I got help. But Janice heard me. And if I could travel the country, which I do now, and help other people feel heard, almost do for others what Janice did for me, just like you guys are paying it forward for more men or more women out there who are struggling, that is what the tour is all about. So Joey, any of y'all, I would love to have y'all come to the States. Have me come to Canada.
Yeah,
I'll
Hell
speak.
yeah, come down.
Can you put me up in the room with bathrobes and a hot tub in it, or what?
Hey,
Or is that pushing it? Oh, okay, no hot tub.
push it a little bit. I might be out
No
the budget.
bathrobe.
Just the bathrobes and slippers. I want to feel like
and your pants. Don't forget your pants.
I want to feel like a celebrity
Yeah.
at least for one night. Like have a
Yes.
cameraman.
One night.
Yeah, you can also find Joey on OnlyPants. He's got a website on OnlyPants.
It's our little inside joke. But you know what's crazy about that story about Janice, Wes, is
What's up?
when we had I didn't even tell you guys this story either. When we had Laverne on, Laverne was a police officer, and he was talking about a situation where he had pulled someone over and he could tell the person was distressed. And Laverne had basically said to this guy, he's like, listen, man, like forget about the uniform. Like, are you okay? So 24 hours before I ended up in treatment back in April of 2021, it was March 29th, 2021. There was a domestic situation with me and my kid's mom. She was staying at the house that I'm in, and I was staying at my mother's. And I came over and I caused a situation. It wasn't physical, but it was not good for the kids to see. She ended up calling the police. And I had this police officer pull me into the house. And I remember talking to my kid's mom outside before, and I was like angry. I was like raging mad. And I said to her, I was like, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to tell this guy everything you did, and I'm going to ruin your fucking life. And the minute I got inside the house with this police officer, it's exactly like you said. Like, he wasn't there to get my side of the story. The way he asked me, he's like, are you okay? and I fucking broke down. And I was telling Laverne this because I had wanted to reach out to this gentleman because it's been almost 4 years. And Laverne's just like, "Oh, dude, like there's this number you can call and it'll like they'll get you in touch with them." So I never told you guys this. I was at work one day. This was like 2 weeks ago. I was at work. I was like, "Fuck, I got like 5 minutes to just get some information on this guy." So I called the police station and I was talking to this woman. I'm like, "Yeah, like this is the date. This is what happened. This is kind of what he looked like." And she's like, "Yep, like I have his information right here. I know exactly who it is." And I was like, "Okay." Like I gave her just like a little bit of the story. I'm like, "This will happen. Like this is where I ended up afterwards as a result of him like treating me like a fucking human being and him not just like doing his job and like trying to get me out of the house." And she's like, "Okay, I'm just going to put you on hold for a quick minute and I'm just going to get his information together and then I'll come back on the line and I'll give you his information." I'm like, "Okay, perfect."
No way.
So I'm sitting on the fucking phone on hold for like 3 minutes. And then a gentleman comes on the phone and I'm just like, I was just talking to a woman about a situation with this police officer. She's like, "Yeah, that was me." And I'm like, "Well, fuck, man. Like I'm sitting in my work truck at work. Like I am not emotionally prepared to have this conversation right now." I'm like sobbing in the work truck with a new guy. I'm just sitting there crying. I'm like, "Dude, you saved
That's
my life."
awesome, man.
He went on holiday, so he's actually back this week. So him and I are going to connect when he gets back to work this week. I'm going to go out. He's working like 40 minutes away from me. He's like a supervisor and shit now. And I'm going to go meet up with him. And I'm actually going to give him, like every year in recovery, we get these things called medallions. They're just like fancy coins. I'm going to meet up with him and give it to him because like, man, like if it wasn't for that guy treating me that way, like I wouldn't be here today. You know, like he connected me with a crisis line, crisis counselors. I ended up in hospital on suicide watch. And it was because he took the time to see that I was suffering and I wasn't someone who's just disgruntled. Like I was going through some shit,
Yeah.
you know? So
Good for
yeah,
him and good for you, buddy.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
proud. That's awesome, man. That's
Oh, dude,
wicked.
I was fucking sobbing on my phone. And I'm a construction worker, dude. I'm just like sitting in the truck. I'm like, I didn't really want to have this conversation today. Oh, fuck.
Ask
dude.
him when he wants to have a meeting to come on the show, bro. Bring him
I'm
on.
probably like, I'm going to mention it to him for sure. I'm going to sit down with this guy for like at least a good hour, man. I'm
I
super
think that would
excited
be
to
a
talk
great
to him.
one.
That's a full circle moment.
Yeah. And you know what it was, man? Like, you know what it was? And like, even for you, Wes, like I told you the starfish story on the pre-interview thing, right? Did I tell you the starfish story? Yeah, yeah. So even in recovery, like, man, I've spoken in meetings in like downtown Toronto. I'm like 2 hours from Toronto. I've spoken in Kingston. I've spoken on Zoom meetings where there's people from fucking Germany. And I've had people over the years come up to me at meetings being like, "I've heard you speak before." And I'm like, "Fucking where?" They're like, "I heard you on Zoom 2 years ago." So it's like, shit, like I've touched people's lives and I didn't even realize it. Like I'm just doing what was asked of me to do. And like same with this, man. Like I had someone reach out this week and they're like, "Dude, I've listened to every episode of your guys' podcast." The finance one, like hit a fucking chord with him because he owns his own business and stuff. And it's like I learned that like sometimes people don't get the opportunity to reach out and tell you like the impact that you've had on their life. So
Yes.
for me, like I've been sitting on this thing with this police officer for 3.5 years. Like I've wanted to reach out to him because to him, he was just doing his job. But to me, he
Yeah.
saved my fucking life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's super important to like, for me to like vocalize those people who've made a big fucking difference in my life.
Oh yeah.
And have you connected with Janice at all, like afterwards?
Bro, but this is where it gets so weird that you're telling me this story because I've been told by like 3 different people to like try to track Janice down.
100%.
And I'm not gonna lie, I don't know how because what do I call the hotline and be
I
like,
would, yeah.
Yeah.
I called on February 21st, 2020.
Yep.
Can you pull the recordings from this number? Because the reason why I'm a little nervous to do that is it was 4 a.m. and she picked up her so they're given these like separate phones, if that makes sense. It was like a call center. So I'm like, do they even have the data for that? So I'm like, all right, maybe that story just inspired me to do it. I might
Yeah,
call her up.
Talk
I'm
to
not
me
gonna-
afterwards, Wes, because
Yeah.
I have someone from my past who works for 988 up in Canada. So I don't know if I can get information. I'll reach out to that person, but you and I'll
Yes.
stay connected. And
Okay.
I've got your number through WhatsApp, so we'll stay connected and I'll see what I can do to find out some more information for you.
I need that because
Yeah,
I
man.
remember her voice. She was calling from North Carolina, and I was in Boston, and I don't know why we got matched together. But yes, that's the only information I have. Janice from North Carolina.
Janice
So
from North Carolina.
That's
if you,
awesome, man.
we'll
I hope
connect.
I
We'll
hope
connect.
you get connected with that, man. I think that would
That
be
would change my
amazing.
life.
You
That would
know.
change my life, man. And it's actually wild that you said that story because I had a similar experience when I was in middle school. A guy came to speak to our middle school. He lost his son to suicide because his son was just terribly bullied in middle school. So now, as a father, he now travels the country sharing his story about his son. His name is John Halligan, and his son's name is Ryan, and his whole program is called Ryan's Story. So he went to my middle school, and I was like 12. And so this is like the peak of my parents' divorce. I don't understand what's going on. My two older siblings have moved out of the house. I'm like being bullied because at 12 years old, I'm diagnosed with this rare skin disease called like vitiligo. So
Hmm.
basically, I have like white spots throughout my body. I'm not sure if you can see it. So, anyways, I mean, I'm being bullied. I'm in the audience, and I just go up to this man after it's over. I just cry in his arms because Ryan's story was my story, and that was when I was 12 years old. Fast forward, I'm 26 years old now, and I'm traveling the country telling my story. So, anyways, I track Ryan's story. That John, his name is John.
Mm-hmm.
I call him in August, the day before I left for tour, and I basically Googled his website, found his website, found his number, found his number. I call it. I'm thinking I'm gonna get his agent. I'm gonna
Yeah.
get his manager, whatever. Bro, it was him. This man said, "Hello, John Halligan." I'm like, hi. You don't know who the F I am. My name is Wes Woodson. You came to my school when I was 12 years old. I want you to know that your story and you sharing your son's story changed my life. And now I travel the country sharing my story. That man started crying on the phone. And it gets even weirder because he goes like, what was your school? Because I went home that day and I emailed him. He found the email. He found the email. He sends it to me. And I start busting out crying because
Crazy,
this
man.
the email said I couldn't even type. I couldn't type for shit back then. I couldn't spell. But the email said I typed that and said, "Mr. Halligan, thank you for coming to my school. Your story changed my life. I hope one day I can have my own anti-bullying program."
Fuck
And
yeah.
now
Crazy.
I'm posting that shit. After this whole thing, I'm gonna get that picture. I'm gonna post that shit. I was like,
Hell
oh
yeah,
my,
bro.
um, yeah, that stuff like that. So Anthony, I'm glad you had that experience, man. Finding that officer. I hope y'all get him on the show because that
Yeah.
is a full circle moment, man. That's healing. That is
Yeah, man.
healing. That is healing, bro. Even just hearing your story gives me goosebumps. You know,
Dude, I was not saying like you know the feeling like someone picks up the phone and you're not prepared for that type of conversation. I was fucking stunned, man. He's just
I
like,
was.
yeah, that's me. I was there, and I'm just like, ah, fuck. Okay, well, I guess we're doing this now.
But I guess this is happening today.
Yeah,
This is happening today, you know. And I was gonna say another thing too. Like, I'm not again. This is the Raw Minds podcast. So I can just be raw and real with y'all.
Yeah,
Uh, as, we
100%,
were,
brother.
as we were talking, man, I've been thinking about reaching out to my ex to write a letter. But I think for me, in terms of toxic relationship, I spent a lot of time blaming myself. A lot of time blaming myself of like it's my fault. It's my fault in terms of like I deserve this. And I don't know. For the last 4 years, I've been on this journey of unlearning those behaviors, but reaching out as a letter for a sense of closure. Maybe not even just sending it to her, but just drafting a letter to her for my own sake. Because this whole conversation has been nothing but healing for me. So thank you. But that has been on my mind right now of like writing a letter of like closure after this.
Well, can I say something to that real quick?
I knew it was
Of
coming. I
course.
was waiting for it. Let's
You
go.
know what I'm going to say.
I know what you're gonna
No,
say.
it's a tool that I was given when I went to counseling. And,
Okay.
a lot of these things that you hear as we go, like these little things that the therapist will tell you to do, you're like, man, that's fucking stupid. I wouldn't do that. That's dumb.
Yeah.
I used to think that with like meditation and all that. I'm like, dude, that's dumb. I'm not doing that shit until you actually start to, and you realize how much of a difference these things make. And as dumb as it sounds, but I will just touch on real quick is about you writing this letter. Now, when I was in therapy and I held on to so much hate from old friends and things that people did to me, and I couldn't let it go. And as much as I wanted to, I couldn't let it go. And it was blocking me from moving forward. Now she told me is do the same. Is you write down in that letter as if the person is sitting across from you at the table, and you be completely open. And if it's a hate, you say every vulgar word. You write it down like I fucking hate you, and every word, it doesn't matter. You just let it out like they're sitting across from you, but you're writing it. And when you're done, you read it out loud to yourself, and then you go outside and you burn it. And you put it in a fucking basket, whatever. You light it on fire, that letter, and it's gone. And that's you releasing it. And I promise you, and I swear, I held on to something from my past for a year and a half. Anxiety, overthinking, every day. And I did that. It was gone. I woke up the next morning and I was just like I was just freed from that. And it's the weirdest thing just by that. So just a suggestion. If you're going to write that letter, because you're in a relationship anyway, so you sending a letter to your ex, probably not a good idea. But it is that is something in order to release and even write out like whatever blame that you take or whatever she takes. But it's all accountability in that letter as well. Not just fuck you, I hate you, you did this to me. It's I did this too, but now I'm releasing that because that is no longer in front of me. That is behind us. Right? And that's your way of letting it go and knowing that you are feeling worthy and that you didn't deserve that. Right?
I love that.
Yep.
I love that. That's a great idea.
Try it.
I'm gonna try that. I mean, it's funny because tomorrow, less than 12 hours from now, I'm hopping on a flight to California for an engagement, for a speaking engagement.
Oh wow.
So I'll be in a hotel early. I'll get there wicked. I always try to arrive a day before the actual gig. So I'm speaking on Wednesday, but I get in tomorrow morning early. So maybe I can go find somewhere to just like write this letter and burn the shit out of it.
Try it, dude.
I mean, you don't have to do it right away. Like, take some time to process it too. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be a whole thing, right? Like, you don't have to write it one night.
And it's when you feel, you heal, right?
Yeah.
So you're releasing that, all of it, into that letter as if they're looking at you across the table, and you got all the hate to release, the love to release, the stress to release, and you write it as if you're reading it to them. So after you're done reading, read it out loud as if they're looking at you and you're reading this to tell them how you really feel about everything that happened, and then you fucking burn it. And I bet it, like, for me, and then when she said this, I'm like, that's fucking, how am I going to let that go after burning a piece of paper?
Yeah.
That's fucking stupid. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this. And I sat here and I wrote out, I fucking hate this piece of shit. But whatever came out, because that's how I was feeling and held on to. And then I sat on my balcony and then I'm like, okay. And I'm just said out loud, I'm letting this go now. And I lit it on fire, the piece of paper, dropped it. I woke up the next day. My anxiety was gone on that situation. I'm just like, dude, I genuinely let it go. And that stupid little assignment that she gave me worked wonders. It's crazy, man. Just these stupid little things. It's so massive.
Almost like a black entity just holding on to you, like this dark, you know what I mean? And it's just evil in it, And then as soon as you write that, and that releases and it pulls it right from you, man. And that's pretty much
huge.
How it is.
It was huge, man. It was weird. And it's funny that all these little things are so massive in your healing and the things that you try. Like, I'll just give another quick real example. Like, I suffered from high anxiety disorder for years because of all the shit that I was dealing with and had to deal with on the regular. And I would look up every day, how do I get rid of anxiety? How do I this and that? And it would never go away, and it killed me. It was crippling, like every day, until one day, and I'm just about these little dumb things. I was scrolling on TikTok, and a guy, just a random dude, and on the video, he's like, you know what? I'm not a doctor, but I started taking this. I've had anxiety for 15 years. I don't have anxiety anymore. And then this doctor jumps in on like their fucking half screen, and he's like, this guy is correct. Take this, anxiety gone. And I went through the depression pills, the anxiety pills. Nothing was really working. Yeah, you got the edge off, but it was always there all day, every day, and I was struggling hard.
Right.
And it was over the counter at the fucking pharmacy, magnesium, vitamin D together.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
I'm like, dude, for $15, I could have got rid of this fucking 6 years ago. And I tried it. I shit you not. I've been taking it now every day for almost a year. Like 98% of my anxiety, and I suffered hard. Gone. It's gone. Over fucking shit. Like, and they sell it in our dollar stores here. And it's just like, dude, that's it. And so these little things, like I said, the letter, the fucking vitamins, little vitamins, like just all these dumb little things. You're just like, it's the fucking massive. Like, I just can't believe how much my life changed over these little things.
Yeah, and I think you're right. To your point, it's the secret. It's the secret.
Yeah. I do want to say though, if you want to touch on just a little bit of like your socials, if you want to post that out there,
Yeah, and your
to all
book
our
too, man.
listeners,
Yeah,
we want you to plug
Oh.
it.
Plug your shit, bro.
Tell everybody where we can find you, where they can look you up, where they can come see you,
Everything.
listen to you speak, whatever. You just let it roll.
Everything. All right. So you can find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Let's see, LinkedIn. If you're out there on LinkedIn, it's just at Wes Woodson. So at WESWOODSON. I document my mental health journey on YouTube. I'm putting more videos out, documenting my own journey with ADHD, anxiety, depression, my speaker journey as well, talking about how to build a healthy relationship with yourself, both on and off stage, both in relationships and out of relationships, and really fall in love with yourself. I'm trying to really just use my platforms to amplify other voices as well. So I'd love to have y'all along for the journey. If you want to learn more and reach out to me, you can go to weswoodson.com, and there's a cool button on my website that I love telling people about. If you click that button, it's like this big kind of black and green button at the top right-hand corner of your screen. It says, Dear Wes. You can write me an anonymous letter just to help people feel more seen, heard, and understood. And I would love to connect with you. But yeah, that's how we can connect. I love this. I love meeting people on the internet. Just got met my new brothers right here.
Hell yeah, brother.
And that's what I'm all about.
Can you send me all your socials and everything like that? Because I'll put that in the description as well when we air this. And we'll have all that in there so you can check it all out.
What about your book, Wes?
Oh, my book. We can't forget about the book. I got to go get that one.
Yeah,
plug that book, shit, bro. Man. What are you doing?
Get it all.
I get my book in my library right here. See, I'm in my studio. But I wrote a book called I Have Anxiety, So What? Because I think a big thing that we struggle with today, whether you're a man, whether you are a woman, whether you are some sort of perfectionist, is shame. The idea is that how can we talk about these things and work through shame? And the book, it quite literally, there's a backstory behind this. When I was in the hospital, they gave me a green folder. Matter of fact, I think I actually have the green folder. It's somewhere in this room. I'll get it in a second. But they gave me a green folder. And when I was, matter of fact, hold up. I'm going to get it.
Do your thing, man.
I love
get your book, get your folder, get it all.
Yeah, buddy, bring it in.
It's right here. This is my hospital folder. I still keep it till this day. I was in the hospital. They gave me this folder with freaking worksheets. Every freaking day we had a new worksheet. We had like all these different exercises. And I kept it. But y'all, when I say I would study this stuff, that's the only thing I would really study religiously was the worksheets that they were giving me on how to fight through procrastination, how to practice better sleeping habits, the importance of your diet, understanding what magnesium actually even is. You know what I mean? Learning all of these things in the hospital. So I put it all in here. And the reason why it's green like this, because I wanted it green like that, but the printer messed up. But that's what it really comes down to. And you can get the book on Amazon, BarnesNobles.com. Yeah.
Give me those links too, brother, and I'll put those in there too.
Where's the best place to buy it to support you the most? Because I know Amazon takes a cut. Like, where's the best spot to buy it?
I appreciate that. If you shoot me an email, wes@weswoodson.com. So my first name at weswoodson.com, and just say, I want to support the book. I'll send you a Venmo link, and I'll send me your address, and I'll ship it to you.
There you
Signed
go.
copy.
Oh yeah.
Signed
Sign-
copy. Damn.
Yeah, signed copy. I'll sign it for you.
Hell yeah.
Okay, Wes, we're gonna hook up. I want a signed copy, buddy. So we'll
Yeah,
get all
me
that
too.
sorted.
And
100%.
let me know when you book that first class ticket for me to come down. And, just give me the details of what hotel, all that shit. I'll rent the car. Don't worry.
I'll run it. I'll give it to you. I'll make sure. You want the penthouse or you want the other
I'm not
suite? Which
greedy.
one
I'm not greedy. I'm not greedy. It's all as long as you got the bathrobe and the slippers. I'm good.
I got you. Now, are you a 100% cotton dude or more so polyester? Which one you want?
I like a 50-50 blend. 50-50.
I like.
We can go into details after the show for sure.
Oh fuck.
We'll put in the contract. We'll make it happen.
But you know what? Before Anthony takes us out, I just want to say, because I'm stepping away from the show, you as our last guest has made it awesome for me. Especially like your energy, dude. Who you are is the best send off. You know, and this is not a forever thing for me, so I can't say it's not forever. But again, I have to refocus on other parts of my life that needs more attention right this second. For anyone listening, that doesn't change you guys reaching out if you need to speak, if you need to talk, if you need help. That's why we're all doing what we do. I'm sure Wes wasn't, like you said, you hit him up. You know, Anthony, Eric, you're struggling. You don't think you can make it another day in this world. Reach out. I will answer, even if I'm not on the show. I will pick up that phone and I will call you, and I will do my best to keep you off of that ledge like I used to stand on. So that doesn't mean I'm not here to help. Doesn't mean I'm not here to support. Doesn't mean I'm not here to be the cheerleader. And
Background buddy. You're the background buddy.
Yeah, I'll be the lights guy in the background.
Yeah. The fluffer or what?
But I just want to thank you, Wes, man. Like, you know, I know we're joking around, but it would be an honor one day to come out and, you know, be able to, even if I'm not doing this right now, to just be able to talk to some kids and, you know, and really help in any way I can. Or if you know, even, you know, even if it's a phone call and you got someone that needs to talk and maybe I'm better at helping, I'd be happy to do that too, my friend. So
Thank you, brother.
regardless if I'm on the show or not, I still, you know, we raw minds for life, man, no matter what.
Yes.
So again, Wes and you boys, man, you guys just mean the world to me. You guys are my brothers. So I want to personally thank you and everyone that's listening in all 13 fucking countries. That's how we do. Anthony, take it away, buddy.
Before we take it away, I just want to ask Wes one more question. And I'm going to start asking this every episode.
I love it.
In one sentence, what's your message to the world?
You are enough just the way that you are. That's it.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
That's my message.
Beautiful.
You are enough just the way that you are.
Thank you. So I would like to formally thank you, Wes, for coming out. This won't be the last time that we have you on. You're a very busy man, I know. But
Hell no.
We'll have you back on. Absolutely. Joey, thank you for introducing me to this. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this and to be a part of your journey. Eric, thank you for everything that you fucking do. Like the amount of background work you put in, man. Thank you to the listeners. You guys are the fuel to this fucking fire. I shit the bed on it last week, so I'm going to call myself out. If you want to be in the hot seat where Wes is, hit us up at rawmindspodcast@gmail.com. We'll have anybody on. As long as you've got a message that you want to share, fuck yeah. Like, this is the platform. We open the floor to whoever wants it, whoever's got different experiences. We love it. Like, we've got guests who want to come on and talk about microdosing with psilocybin. We've got guests like Wes who do this for a living and they go around and share their story. We've got guests who've been through the suicide stuff, law enforcement officers, ex-Navy SEALs, all the shit. Like we we love it. There's so many ways to heal. There's so many tools that we have not even scratched the surface on yet. So if you've got the tools, we want to hear them. So hit us up at rawmindspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on TikTok at Raw Minds Podcast. Follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Audible, Apple Music, all the shit. And leave us a review because it means a lot to us. It helps us out in the long run. So I want to thank you, Wes, for coming out. I want to thank you, Joey, for everything that you've done to this point. We always love you. We will always support you. And thank you, everybody, for being a part of this journey tonight.
Thank you, Wes. Appreciate you, brother.
Pleasure's
Thank you,
all mine.
Joey. We'll see you around. Don't worry.
And just remember, if you can't find good people, be good people.
Boom.